On a warm September evening in Waco, Texas, Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh took the stage to honor his late mentor, Kenneth Starr. The event was more than a tribute. It was a moment for reflection on the principles that shape American democracy. As the audience listened in the packed auditorium, Kavanaugh's words resonated far beyond those four walls, reaching into the heart of a nation grappling with questions of power and justice. He spoke passionately about the genius of the U.S. system, how it was intentionally designed so that no single person or group could ever wield unchecked authority. Kavanaugh invoked the Declaration of Independence, reminding listeners that the founders, deeply scarred by the abuses of King George III, set out to create a government that would forever guard against the dangers of concentrated power. Their answer was bold and innovative: divide power among three separate branches: Congress, the President, and the courts, each with its own responsibilities, each with its own limits. This structure, Kavanaugh explained, was meant to ensure that no branch could dominate the others. This separation of powers, he argued, is not just a technical detail, it's the very foundation of American freedom. It forces compromise, demands debate, and requires that decisions be made with care and consideration for all. Yet, Kavanaugh's remarks came at a time when the Supreme Court itself was under intense scrutiny, facing accusations of partisanship and of consolidating too much power within its own walls. Critics pointed out the irony, while Kavanaugh praised the virtues of limited government. Many Americans believed the court was increasingly favoring former President Trump and his allies, raising questions about impartiality and balance. What was meant to be a celebration of a founding principle instead became a flashpoint, highlighting a fierce national debate over whether those principles are truly being upheld in today's America. The tension between the nation's ideals and its current reality was unmistakable, felt by everyone in the room and far beyond. In that moment, Kavanaugh's words became more than a tribute. They became a lens through which America's ongoing struggle with power, accountability, and the meaning of justice could be seen and questioned anew. The founders' greatest fear was repeating the tyranny they'd fought to escape. They had seen firsthand how unchecked power could lead to oppression, and they were determined to prevent that from ever happening again in their new nation. King George III's unchecked power drove them to design a government where authority was split among three co-equal branches. They wanted to ensure that no single person or group could ever dominate the country as a king had. Congress would make laws, the president would enforce them, acting as the nation's chief executive and carrying out the will of the people through the laws passed by Congress, and the courts would interpret them, ensuring that every law and action aligned with the Constitution's principles. This structure wasn't just about dividing tasks, it was about creating friction and accountability. The founders believed that healthy disagreement and debate would keep the government honest and responsive. No single branch could act alone. Each checked the others, making it difficult for any one branch to seize too much power. For a bill to become law, it had to pass both houses of Congress, representing the people and the states, and survive rigorous debate and revision. Then it had to be signed by the president, or, if vetoed, survive a difficult override vote. This process was intentionally complex, designed to slow down rash decisions. Courts could strike down unconstitutional laws, acting as a final safeguard to protect individual rights and the rule of law. This system forced negotiation and compromise, making it nearly impossible for an American monarch to rise. It was a deliberate shield against tyranny. The founders' new ambition would always seek more power, so they built walls to contain it. They understood that human nature could not be changed, but it could be balanced. James Madison wrote, "Ambition must be made to counteract ambition." This idea became the foundation of the American system of checks and balances. The goal wasn't efficiency, but safety, preserving liberty by preventing any one person from dominating. The founders valued freedom over speed and debate over decree. That remains the heart of American democracy, a system built to protect liberty, foster debate, and ensure that power always remains in the hands of the people. The Supreme Court, once seen as above politics, now finds itself at the center of partisan storms. Contentious confirmation hearings and divisive rulings have fueled perceptions that justices are political actors, not neutral arbiters. The conservative supermajority, especially, faces criticism for aligning with Republican interests and former President Trump. Emergency rulings, like the one allowing Trump's immigration policies, have intensified accusations of bias. Public trust in the court has plummeted, with many Americans doubting its impartiality. The court's authority, after all, depends on the public's belief in its legitimacy. The 2024 presidential immunity ruling became a flashpoint in the debate over the court's direction. The case asked, can a former president be prosecuted for actions in office? The court's answer created a complex framework, shielding Trump from immediate prosecution. Critics saw this as a victory for Trump and a blow to accountability, warning it set a dangerous precedent. By distinguishing between official and private acts, the court delayed legal proceedings, likely pushing any trial past the election. Many argued this was a deliberate move to protect Trump. The backlash was swift. Scholars and politicians decried the decision as undermining the principle that no one is above the law. Instead of checking executive power, the court appeared to expand it. The ruling raised urgent questions about whether the judiciary is holding power accountable or enabling it. Outside Kavanaugh's Waco speech, protesters gathered, holding signs like "No one is above the law." The crowd was diverse: students, activists, and concerned citizens, each voicing their anxieties about the direction of the country. Their chants echoed through the streets, drawing attention from passers-by and local media alike. Their message was clear: the Supreme Court, in their eyes, had become a political tool for Trump and the conservative movement. Many felt that recent decisions had eroded the court's reputation for impartiality and that its actions now reflected partisan interests more than the rule of law. J.W. Lestrape, leading the Baylor University Democrats, summed up the frustration. The Supreme Court has handed the country to Trump. His words resonated with many in the crowd, who saw the court's recent rulings as a turning point in American democracy. For critics, Kavanaugh's words about limiting power rang hollow, given the court's recent decisions. Many pointed to what they saw as a widening gap between the court's stated ideals and its real-world impact. The protests reflected a broader crisis of confidence in the judiciary. People questioned whether the courts could still serve as a check on political power, or if they had become just another battleground in America's culture wars. Across the nation, many now see the court as favoring the powerful and prioritizing political allies. This perception has only grown as more controversial decisions have come down, sparking protests not just in Waco, but in cities from coast to coast. This perception is fueled by a series of rulings on voting rights, environmental regulations, and more. Each decision seems to deepen the divide, with critics arguing that the court is out of step with the needs and values of ordinary Americans. The scene in Waco captured the divide. Inside, a justice spoke of noble principles. Outside, citizens protested what they saw as their abandonment. The contrast was stark, highlighting the growing disconnect between the judiciary and the public it serves. The court's legitimacy now hinges on public faith, a faith that's increasingly fractured. As more Americans question the court's motives, its ability to function as a trusted institution is put to the test. Whether the court is a principled arbiter or a partisan actor depends on whom you ask. For some, it remains a vital guardian of the Constitution. For others, it's become a symbol of a system in need of reform. Justice Kavanaugh's career is deeply linked to Kenneth Starr, the man he honored in Waco. As a young lawyer, Kavanaugh worked for Starr during the Clinton investigation, helping shape the aggressive approach that led to impeachment. Years later, Starr defended Kavanaugh during his own contentious confirmation hearings. Starr's career was marked by controversy, from the Clinton probe to defending Jeffrey Epstein and resigning from Baylor amid scandal. Starr even joined Trump's legal team during his first impeachment, arguing against powers he once wielded. Kavanaugh's close association with Starr reinforces the perception that he's long been a political operative, a shadow that now follows him on the Supreme Court. Kavanaugh and his supporters insist the court is not political, but faithful to the Constitution. They argue that decisions are grounded in originalism and textualism, not personal preference. Controversial rulings, they say, reflect careful legal reasoning, not favoritism toward Trump. In the immunity case, the goal was to set a clear standard for the presidency, balancing accountability with the need for executive independence. Supporters claim critics are reacting to outcomes, not legal principles. When the court rules in their favor, critics praise it. When not, they attack its legitimacy. Kavanaugh's Waco speech, in this view, was a defense of the court's role as guardian of the constitutional structure. The justices see themselves as referees, not kingmakers, even when the crowd boos. Critics see a troubling pattern. The court's conservative majority repeatedly defers to Trump and the conservative movement. They point to the immunity ruling, emergency appeals, and decisions that kept Trump on the ballot as evidence of bias. Each move, they argue, has aided Trump's political fortunes and shielded him from accountability. Critics also highlight the influence of organizations like the Heritage Foundation, which push for judges who favor originalist interpretations that expand executive power. Some conservatives even suggest replacing Chief Justice Roberts with Kavanaugh for a more reliably pro-Trump court. For critics, the court is failing its duty to check executive power, instead enabling it. They see the justices as political actors, using their positions to advance an agenda. To them, Kavanaugh's warnings about concentrated power are a smokescreen for the court's own role in consolidating it. The debate over Kavanaugh, Trump, and the Supreme Court returns us to the core question: how do we keep power in check? The founders' answer, separation of powers, remains vital, prioritizing liberty over efficiency. When the balance falters, trust in democracy erodes. If courts are seen as political tools, the rule of law weakens. This moment is a stress test for American democracy, forcing hard questions about justice and the judiciary's role. A democracy cannot survive if its people lose faith in its institutions. The principle of separated powers is our best defense against authoritarianism. Preserving it demands vigilance, from leaders, judges, and the public alike.